Welcome back to Science for Sleep. Tonight, we're going to wander gently into the world of melatonin, the quiet little hormone that guides you into night, softens your thoughts, and helps your body remember how to rest. We'll move slowly, letting the explanations unfold like ripples on calm water. Nothing rushed, nothing sharp. Just peaceful science at a sleepy, drifting pace. As you settle in, take a moment to feel the weight of the blankets around you. Notice how your breath rises and falls without effort. There's no pressure to focus, no need to follow every word. Just allow the calmness to settle, like dusk slowly gathering across the sky. And before we drift any deeper, if you enjoy these quiet nighttime journeys, these gentle explorations that help your mind slow down, I invite you to like or subscribe. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, just breathe. Let the day fade behind you. There is nothing you need to do except rest. Melatonin is often called the sleep hormone, but that description barely captures what it truly is. It doesn't force you into sleep or push your body into unconsciousness. Instead, it acts more like a quiet conductor, standing at the edge of your inner orchestra. With soft, subtle motions, it signals every part of you that night has arrived, that the pace of the day can slow, that your temperature can fall, that your mind can release its grip and drift toward rest. This nightly rise begins in a tiny structure deep inside your brain, the pineal gland. It's no larger than a grain of rice, tucked between the two halves of your brain, and yet it has one of the most important roles in your entire sleep cycle. It listens for darkness. It waits for the world to dim, and when the light fades, it begins releasing melatonin like a soft whisper of evening, spreading throughout your bloodstream with quiet intention. There's something ancient and comforting about that. Long before screens and city lights shaped our nights, melatonin simply responded to the setting sun. When dusk arrived, melatonin rose. When dawn approached, it faded. A rhythm older than history, a rhythm your body still remembers, even if your modern life has drifted away from natural darkness. As melatonin begins to rise each evening, your internal world shifts. Your thoughts soften, your muscles release tension, your vision adjusts slightly, tuned toward calm rather than focus. It's a gentle transition, more like a story being told than a switch being flipped. And as we continue tonight, we'll explore the ancient origins of this hormone, how it shaped the evenings of our earliest ancestors, and why darkness still speaks to your biology in ways you can feel but not always explain. For now, just allow the stillness to settle, knowing your body already understands the language of night, long before modern life reshaped the rhythm of day and night. Melatonin was already guiding living creatures through the dark. It's one of the oldest biological signals we carry, a quiet piece of ancient wisdom woven into the way our cells understand time, light, and rest. When you imagine early humans watching the sunset, feeling their bodies naturally calm as the world dimmed, you're imagining the earliest expression of melatonin at work. For most of human history, night wasn't something you controlled. There were no lamps, no glowing screens, no artificial brightness. When the sun dipped below the horizon, darkness arrived completely and immediately. And in that darkness, your ancestors' internal clocks slipped effortlessly into nighttime mode. Melatonin rose smoothly, signaling that it was time to retreat, soften, and rest. There was no confusion, no mixed signals, no light pollution to blur the boundaries between day and night. Melatonin, in that ancient world, was not just a hormone, it was a storyteller. It narrated the transition from activity to rest, from brightness to quiet. It helped early humans stay synchronized with the natural cycles of the earth, waking with the light and sleeping with the dark. Every sunrise and sunset reinforced the rhythm. The body didn't have to guess whether it was daytime or nighttime. The world itself provided the answer. This is why melatonin is so sensitive to light, especially blue light, because for thousands of years, the only source of blue light was the sun itself. In nature, blue light meant daylight, activity, safety, movement. Darkness meant stillness, quiet, and protection. The pineal gland evolved to treat blue light as a signal to stop melatonin production instantly, and to treat darkness as a signal to begin it again. Even today, your body responds to those cues with incredible precision, as if it's still listening to the sun. You carry that ancient rhythm inside you. Even though your nights are lit by screens and lamps, your biology still expects the world to darken naturally. Your cells remember a time when the only light at night came from the moon or a small fire, and the body treats firelight differently. Its warm orange glow doesn't suppress melatonin the way modern lighting does. This is why sunsets, candlelight, and warm tones feel calming. Your nervous system recognizes them as part of a safe evening environment. If you've ever felt a wave of tiredness wash over you during a quiet, screen-free evening, maybe while camping or sitting by a fire, or simply spending time in dim, natural light, that's melatonin responding to the world the way it was designed to. It rises easily when the environment is simple, when darkness is real darkness, when your surroundings match the ancient blueprint your body was built on. But modern life complicates this. Street lights glow through windows, overhead lights stay bright long after sunset, and screens mimic the wavelengths of midday sun. Your pineal gland interprets that brightness as daytime, even at midnight, and melatonin's ancient rhythm is forced to change. It doesn't fade away, it just becomes confused, delayed, distorted. Part of the soothing power of learning about melatonin is understanding that any trouble you have with sleep isn't your fault. Your biology is not broken. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's just responding to a world that no longer dims the way it used to. And when you create small pockets of darkness, even for short moments, your body responds instantly, remembering the rhythm it has followed for thousands of years. As you drift deeper into tonight's journey, you'll begin to see melatonin not as a supplement or a tool, but as a quiet, ancient companion. Something that has guided every human who came before you into rest, night after night, generation after generation. Deep inside your brain, far beneath thoughts and memories and the noise of the day, something gentle happens every evening. As the light fades around you, your brain begins preparing a slow, quiet chemical sequence, a soft internal process that transforms the busyness of your day into the calmness of night. This is the beginning of melatonin's nightly rise, and it starts long before you even feel sleepy. The process begins with something simple and familiar, an amino acid called tryptophan. You get it from food, grains, nuts, eggs, seeds, even quiet, everyday meals that you don't think twice about. Tryptophan floats through your bloodstream, eventually making its way into your brain, where it becomes the foundation for two of the most important chemicals in your internal life: serotonin and melatonin. First, your body transforms tryptophan into serotonin, the neurotransmitter often associated with calm, happiness, and emotional balance. Serotonin is like daylight's chemical, steady, grounding, quietly uplifting. You use it all day long, but at night, something beautiful happens. Your brain begins turning serotonin into melatonin. The chemistry shifts direction, moving you from wakefulness into the gentle territory of rest. This transformation happens inside the pineal gland, which sits in the very center of your brain, almost like a tiny lantern tucked into a quiet cave. When darkness arrives, the pineal gland becomes active. It takes the serotonin you've built throughout the day and slowly converts it into melatonin, using two separate enzymes working with soft precision. As melatonin begins to collect, it drifts into your bloodstream at a slow, steady pace. There's no rush, no urgency. Melatonin doesn't spike suddenly. It builds like twilight, growing stronger by the minute. That gradual rise is what makes evenings feel different. Colors soften, thoughts slow down. Your body begins to release tension in ways you may not consciously notice. It becomes easier to imagine resting. The world begins to feel quieter, even if nothing around you has changed. Your eyes play a surprisingly important role in this process. At the back of your retina are special cells that detect light, not just brightness, but the kind of light in your environment. Blue light, the wavelength most associated with daytime, sends a clear signal to your brain. Stay awake. Don't release melatonin yet. Warm, dim light sends the opposite message. The day is ending. Let the night begin. These signals travel to a region of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, often described as your master clock. It's a cluster of cells no bigger than a grain of rice, yet it controls the timing of almost every biological rhythm you have. It's the one that tells the pineal gland when to start and stop melatonin production. When the light fades, the SCN finally gives your pineal gland permission to release melatonin fully. This is why the timing of light exposure matters so much. If you spend your evening surrounded by bright screens, overhead lights, or blue-toned LEDs, your brain receives the message that it's still daytime, even if the clock says otherwise. The pineal gland pauses. Melatonin stays low. You feel awake long past the moment your body wanted to begin resting. But the moment the light dims, the moment the world around you becomes soft, melatonin begins rising. Your body responds quickly, as if it's relieved to be allowed into darkness again. Even a single hour of dim, warm light can trigger a natural melatonin wave. It's one of the reasons evenings spent reading, relaxing, or simply sitting quietly feel so soothing. Your biology aligns with the softness of the environment. And yet, melatonin isn't just about sleepiness. It changes the texture of your thoughts. It softens your emotional intensity. It quiets the parts of your brain that stay alert during the day. It prepares you not only to sleep, but to dream, to drift into a world where memories blend, emotions untangle, and tomorrow's clarity quietly begins forming. All of it begins with that gentle nightly transformation. Tryptophan to serotonin, serotonin to melatonin. A chemical story unfolding every evening, whether you notice it or not. A story your body has rehearsed for your entire life. A story it will continue telling every night you allow it the darkness it needs. Every living thing follows a rhythm, a gentle rise and fall that repeats every 24 hours. Plants open their leaves in the morning and close them at night. Birds wake with first light. Even tiny single-celled organisms follow predictable daily cycles. And humans, despite the complexity of our thoughts, emotions, and routines, are no different. Deep inside your brain, your circadian rhythm keeps time, marking the quiet transitions between wakefulness and rest. Melatonin is one of the clearest signals that this internal clock uses. It doesn't just appear randomly or only when you feel tired. It follows a precise pattern every single day, like the slow ticking of a clock that you can't hear but always feel. Even before the sun sets, your brain begins preparing for melatonin's rise. A few hours before your natural bedtime, melatonin starts to trickle into your bloodstream, creating what scientists call the dim light melatonin onset, a moment when the body begins shifting from day mode into night mode. This shift is gentle, almost invisible. You might notice yourself blinking longer between thoughts, speaking more softly, or feeling a subtle heaviness in your limbs. You're not exhausted. You're simply aligning with the quiet evening rhythm that melatonin guides. As the night deepens, melatonin levels continue to rise, reaching their peak sometime between midnight and 3 a.m., depending on your individual sleep schedule. At this peak, your body is deeply committed to rest. Heart rate slows, breathing becomes steady, muscles relax. The brain moves into cycles of deep sleep and dreaming. Everything inside you follows this nightly tide, pulling you into stillness so your body can repair, restore, and reset. Melatonin is the signal that makes this whole sequence happen at the right time, night after night. But this rhythm is just as important in reverse. As dawn approaches, melatonin levels begin to fall. Not suddenly, they ebb slowly, like a tide pulling back from the shore. Even before you open your eyes, your body senses the approaching light. Your temperature rises slightly. Your metabolism activates. Cortisol, the hormone that gently wakes you, begins its morning climb. These shifts don't wake you immediately. They prepare you to wake naturally, in harmony with the world around you. The most important part of this daily dance is consistency. Your circadian rhythm thrives on predictability, regular light and darkness, stable sleep schedules, familiar routines. When these cues stay steady, melatonin rises and falls effortlessly. But when your schedule changes, staying up late, sleeping in, working night shifts, traveling across time zones, the rhythm becomes confused. Melatonin may rise too late or fade too early, leaving you feeling groggy in the morning or awake long past midnight. Even small irregularities can disrupt this cycle. A bright room at night, inconsistent meal timing, or bursts of screen light just before bed can shift melatonin's schedule without you realizing it. Your internal clock then tries to adapt, inching back and forth until it finds a stable rhythm again. This is why you may feel tired at odd hours after a few nights of staying up late or using bright screens. Your internal rhythm is responding to light cues more strongly than to your intentions. Despite these challenges, your circadian rhythm is incredibly resilient. The moment you create regular light-dark patterns again, dimming the lights in the evening, waking with daylight, sleeping at consistent times, melatonin falls back into place. Your body remembers the natural rhythm it was built for. You don't have to force it. You simply have to give it the conditions it understands. And in the background of every day, this dance continues. Melatonin rising with night, falling with dawn, guiding your body through the same ancient pattern every living creature on Earth follows in its own way. The rhythm threads through you quietly, almost invisibly, reminding your body that you are a creature of cycles, of light and dark, of waking and rest. Whenever you follow that rhythm gently, your body responds with ease. And as you drift deeper into tonight's exploration, you'll see how even something as soft as evening light can shape the entire pattern of your internal world. Every night, long before you fall asleep, your body is already listening, not to your thoughts or your intentions, but to the light around you. Your eyes act as the gateway to your internal clock, constantly measuring brightness, color, and contrast. Even when you're not paying attention, your brain is. The presence or absence of light becomes the most powerful signal your body receives about whether it's time for alertness or time for rest. When light enters your eyes, it travels deeper into the brain than you might expect. Behind the familiar image-forming cells that help you see shapes and colors, there is a special group of cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These cells don't help you see anything at all. They aren't concerned with vision, detail, or imagery. Their only job is to detect overall brightness, especially the bright blue wavelengths that mimic daylight. As sunlight fades, or when your environment shifts into dim warmth, these cells send a different kind of message. They tell your brain that the world is darkening, that it's safe to relax, that the day is ending. This message travels straight to your internal master clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which sits deep in the hypothalamus. When the SCN receives the signal that light levels have decreased, it sends a quiet instruction to the pineal gland. Begin releasing melatonin. This transition is so subtle, you rarely feel it consciously. You might notice your eyes blinking more slowly, or your thoughts becoming heavier, or your body settling into a more relaxed posture. The world around you seems to soften as your internal system shifts into evening mode. Melatonin begins to flow not because you're tired, but because darkness itself has spoken to your body. But modern light complicates this ancient dialogue. Long before screens existed, the only bright blue light in your environment was the daytime sky. Our biology evolved to treat blue wavelengths as a clear, unmistakable signal of daytime. When your eyes sense blue light, melatonin production stops almost instantly. Your brain interprets the signal as daylight, even if the clock says it's midnight. This is why looking at a bright screen before bed can make you feel strangely awake. The light from phones, tablets, computers, and LED bulbs is rich in blue wavelengths. Your eyes can't tell the difference between natural and artificial light. They respond the same way. Your pineal gland delays melatonin production, pushing your sleep rhythm later into the night. The result is a phenomenon called circadian phase delay, where your body believes bedtime should be later than it actually is. You may feel fully alert at 11 p.m., 12 a.m., or even 1 a.m. Not because you don't need sleep, but because your internal system hasn't received enough darkness to begin producing melatonin naturally. Warm, low, golden light has the opposite effect. Firelight, candlelight, and soft amber tones don't suppress melatonin the way blue light does. In fact, your body seems to relax into these wavelengths easily, as if recognizing them from thousands of years of human evenings. It's why sitting near a fire or dimming your lights before bed creates such a natural sense of calm. Even a small shift in light can change your internal rhythm. A dim room can allow melatonin to rise fully. A bright overhead light can stop it instantly. A small bedside lamp with warm light can be enough to ease your system into nighttime mode, while a harsh screen glow can reverse that process without you realizing it. Light doesn't just affect when melatonin rises, it affects how strongly it rises. Nights spent in overwhelming brightness lead to weaker melatonin signals, which can make sleep feel shallow or restless. Nights spent in soft, consistent darkness allow melatonin to reach its peak smoothly, leading to deeper, more restorative rest. This sensitivity to light isn't a flaw. It's a reflection of the ancient world your biology evolved in. A world where darkness meant safety, quiet, and sleep, and where dawn meant movement and wakefulness. Your body still responds to those cues as if nothing has changed. As you continue drifting through tonight's exploration, you'll begin to see why the smallest details, the dimming of a lamp, the glow of a screen, the softness of a room at dusk, are enough to shape the entire quality of your sleep. The eyes may be open for only a moment, but the signals they send ripple through the entire night. Deep in the very center of your brain, tucked away in a place so well hidden that early anatomists struggled to understand its purpose, sits a structure no larger than a grain of rice. The pineal gland. Small, quiet, and easily overlooked, yet responsible for directing the entire nighttime rhythm of your body. If your internal world were an ocean, the pineal gland would be the lighthouse, casting a gentle signal across the dark to guide every system safely toward rest. The pineal gland has fascinated scientists and philosophers for centuries. Ancient thinkers believed it held spiritual significance because it sat alone, unpaired, unlike most structures in the brain. Its central position made them think it was an anchor point for the soul, or a window to deeper consciousness. While modern science has moved away from mystical theories, it still recognizes the pineal gland as something remarkable, a structure uniquely sensitive to the world around you, especially to the presence or absence of light. Despite being buried deep within your brain, the pineal gland is connected to your eyes, not directly, but through a long, elegant chain of signals. When light enters your eyes, the information travels from your retina to your suprachiasmatic nucleus, the body's internal clock. From there, the signal travels even farther, through small pathways that eventually reach the pineal gland. Only when the message is clear, it's dark now, does the pineal gland begin its nightly task of releasing melatonin. This means the pineal gland isn't acting alone. It's receiving instructions from the master clock, and the master clock is listening to the environment. Your body, in this sense, is always in conversation with the world. Light speaks to the eyes relay the message to the clock, and the clock whispers to the pineal gland. it's time to bring nightfall to the body. What makes the pineal gland truly special is how immediate its response is. The moment darkness becomes consistent, when the sun sets, when lights dim, when screens are turned off, the pineal gland transforms from a quiet structure into an active one. It begins synthesizing melatonin from serotonin, packing each molecule with the information your body needs to transition into night mode. Once released, melatonin travels through your bloodstream like a silent signal, touching every cell, every organ, every system. It tells your temperature to drop. It tells your muscles to relax. It tells your digestive system to slow down. It even influences your immune system, which becomes more active during sleep. And yet, all of this begins with a tiny gland no bigger than your fingertip. The pineal gland is also one of the most protected structures in your brain. It sits behind layers of tissue, shielded from physical harm and insulated in quiet darkness. This protection is partly why it functions so consistently. It's not easily interrupted by movement or noise. Only light, interpreted through the eyes, can reach it with enough clarity to change its activity. This is why light exposure at night is such a powerful disruptor. The pineal gland isn't confused by sound or temperature or emotion. It responds almost exclusively to light. Throughout your life, the pineal gland follows a natural cycle. In childhood, it's highly active, producing abundant melatonin that helps children fall asleep quickly and wake refreshed. As you age, the gland becomes slightly less active, which is one of the reasons sleep tends to shift or become lighter over time. But even in older adults, the pineal gland continues to follow the rhythm of light and darkness, maintaining its nightly duty as faithfully as it can. Some people experience brief bursts of drowsiness on cloudy days, during storms, or in dim winter afternoons. That's the pineal gland responding to low light with small increases in melatonin. It's an ancient mechanism, reminding you that your brain still listens to the sky in ways you rarely notice. When you think of melatonin, it's easy to imagine it as a simple sleep hormone. But behind that simplicity is the pineal gland, this small, luminous lighthouse inside your brain, quietly waiting for darkness so it can guide you into rest. Its job is ancient. Its rhythm is precise. And each night, without fail, it lights the path that leads you gently towards sleep. Most people imagine melatonin as something like an internal sleeping pill, a chemical that pours into your bloodstream and instantly makes you drowsy. But melatonin is far quieter than that. It doesn't sedate you. It doesn't shut down your mind. It doesn't force your body into sleep. Instead, it creates the conditions in which sleep becomes possible, comforting and natural. Melatonin is more like a dimmer switch than an off button. It signals that the night has begun, that the world is safe enough to rest, and that your internal systems can shift away from alertness. The sleepiness you associate with melatonin comes not from the hormone itself, but from the cascade of changes it sets in motion, changes that unfold slowly and gently throughout your body. One of the first things melatonin does is influence your core body temperature. During the day, your internal temperature stays slightly higher to support movement, digestion, thinking, and alertness. But when melatonin begins to rise, your body starts cooling itself down gradually. Blood vessels near the skin widen, allowing heat to escape. Hands and feet often feel warmer at night, not because the environment has changed, but because your body is quietly releasing heat to prepare for deeper sleep. This cooling is powerful. A slight drop in core temperature is one of the strongest triggers for sleepiness. So when melatonin whispers to your body to begin cooling down, you feel it as the gentle heaviness of evening, an ease in the limbs, a loosening of tension, a softness in focus. Melatonin also influences brain activity, though not in a way that overrides your thoughts. Instead, it reduces the background noise of wakefulness. The parts of the brain that manage planning, attention, and alert scanning begin to quiet. This is why your mind may drift more easily in the evening, wandering into memories, images, and half dreams. It's not sedation. It's a shift from structured thinking to the fluid mental state that makes dreaming possible. Another subtle effect of melatonin is its role in synchronizing your sleep architecture. The progression through light sleep, deep restorative sleep, and REM sleep. Without melatonin rising at the correct time, these stages can become disorganized. You may fall asleep at random hours, wake frequently, or feel unrested even after a full night's sleep. When melatonin climbs smoothly in the evening, your sleep stages align beautifully, like steps falling into place on a spiral staircase. What's remarkable is how quickly your body responds to the presence or absence of melatonin. If the hormone rises at its natural time, you feel your internal world dimming. But if its rise is delayed by bright lights, irregular schedules, or stress, your body simply doesn't receive the signal. You may feel wide awake at midnight, not because you have energy to spare, but because your internal system still believes it's daytime. Even supplements, when taken, don't create sleepiness through chemical force. They simply mimic the timing signal that darkness normally gives. When used correctly, at low doses, at the right time, and occasionally rather than habitually, they reinforce the natural rhythm your body already understands. But the true power of melatonin is in the hormone your own pineal gland makes, shifting your internal landscape in ways that are subtle, ancient, and deeply woven into the biology of every human being. People sometimes worry when they don't immediately feel sleepy at night, assuming something must be wrong with them. But melatonin reminds us that sleepiness is not a switch, it's a transition, a slow blending of body and mind into the quiet of evening, a rhythm that rises not from pressure, but from biological permission. And your body grants that permission through the simple, steady language of melatonin. As you drift further into tonight's journey, we'll explore how melatonin interacts with stress, diet, and nighttime habits, and why small choices in your evening routine can make such a profound difference in how gently sleep arrives. Inside your body, two powerful forces shape the way you transition from day into night: melatonin and cortisol. One guides you toward rest, softness, and stillness. The other keeps you alert, responsive, and ready to face the world. Both are essential. Both keep you safe. But when stress becomes overwhelming, when your mind feels crowded, busy, or tense, cortisol begins to rise at moments when it should be falling. And that rise can overpower melatonin's quiet nighttime signal. Cortisol is often misunderstood. People think of it as a stress hormone, but it's really more of a rhythm hormone. Cortisol peaks naturally in the morning to help you wake up, giving you the clarity and energy needed to begin the day. Throughout the afternoon, it gradually falls, making room for calmness to return. By evening, it should be low enough for melatonin to step in and guide you into rest. But stress disrupts this transition. When your mind is active late into the night, replaying conversations, worrying about deadlines, scrolling endlessly, or simply feeling overwhelmed, cortisol stays elevated. Your brain interprets stress as daytime, even if the clock says it's late. And because cortisol and melatonin work in opposition, the presence of one can silence the other. Think of cortisol as a bright, sharp light, and melatonin as a soft, warm glow. In a room with both, the brighter light always dominates. That's what happens inside your body. When cortisol remains high, melatonin struggles to rise. Your body receives mixed messages. Part of you wants rest, but another part is locked in alert mode, unable to soften. You might feel tired but wired, exhausted but unable to drift off, physically drained yet mentally wide awake. This is one of the reasons stress has such an immediate effect on sleep. Even a single stressful event in the evening, an argument, a sudden worry, or a difficult day, can keep cortisol elevated long enough to delay melatonin release by hours. Sleep becomes shallow, fragmented, or delayed, not because your body is malfunctioning, but because it is responding exactly as it was designed to. Stress signals danger, and danger, even imagined danger, keeps your system awake. But the reverse is also true. When you begin creating an environment of softness and safety in the evening, cortisol naturally falls. Slow breathing, dim lighting, warm showers, calming routines, all of these activities quietly lower cortisol, creating room for melatonin to rise naturally. It's not about forcing sleep, it's about signaling safety. Your nervous system is deeply influenced by cues of safety and danger. A quiet room, a soft blanket, gentle lighting, and predictable routines all tell your body, you're safe now, you can release the day. When that message is clear, melatonin rises in a smooth wave, and your internal world shifts gently into night mode. There's a reason people sleep more easily in familiar environments or after calming evening rituals. These habits aren't trivial, they're biological. They signal to your system that the daytime tasks and pressures are complete, that it's okay to wind down. And this is where melatonin and cortisol work together, rather than against each other. They follow rhythms that are influenced by your choices, your environment, and your emotional state. A stressful night doesn't damage the rhythm forever. The next evening, your body tries again. Your internal clock is resilient, always working to return to balance. When you begin to notice this pattern, stress raising alertness, calmness lowering it, you start to see your sleep not as a mysterious failure, but as a predictable response to your internal landscape. Melatonin wants to guide you, it always does. It simply needs the space to whisper over cortisol's voice. And once you understand that quiet tug of war inside you, it becomes easier to create the conditions where melatonin can finally lead. Some of the most powerful influences on your melatonin levels aren't scientific or technical at all. They're simple, quiet habits woven into the way you end your day. The choices you make in the hours before bedtime gently shape how easily melatonin rises, how smoothly your body transitions into night mode, and how naturally sleep begins. These habits form the soft boundary between the bright intensity of the day and the calmness your system needs to rest. One of the most underrated habits is dimming the lights early. Humans evolved under sunsets, not overhead LEDs. When lights remain bright late into the evening, your brain interprets the environment as daytime and delays melatonin production. But when you begin dimming lights an hour or two before bed, switching off overhead bulbs, using lamps instead of ceiling lights, choosing warm colors instead of cold ones, your body responds almost immediately. Darkness becomes an invitation, and melatonin flows more freely. Another helpful shift is reducing screen exposure, not because technology is harmful, but because screens mimic the specific wavelengths of daylight. Blue light from phones and computers tells your brain to hold off on releasing melatonin. Even brief glances at a bright screen, checking one last message, scrolling through one last feed, can reset your internal clock by minutes or even hours. Simply lowering your screen brightness, using night mode, or setting devices aside earlier than usual gives your pineal gland a clear signal that night has actually arrived. Temperature also plays a quiet but powerful role. Your body naturally cools as melatonin rises, preparing you for sleep. A cooler bedroom makes this transition even smoother. Many people experience improved sleep just by lowering the thermostat a few degrees or opening a window to let fresh air circulate. This cooling tells your body that it's time to shift into rest mode, reinforcing melatonin's signal. Evening routines, in general, matter more than most people realize. A consistent pattern, washing up, making tea, reading, stretching, journaling, or simply sitting somewhere quiet, acts like a cue for your nervous system. These small rituals become a form of evening language that your body learns to interpret. When they remain predictable, your internal rhythm relaxes sooner, allowing melatonin to rise earlier and more steadily. Food and drink can also influence your nighttime experience. Heavy meals close to bedtime force your digestive system to stay active, slowing the shift into deep rest. Caffeine, even in small amounts late in the day, can block the very receptors melatonin uses to guide your mind towards sleepiness. Alcohol may make you feel drowsy, but it disrupts the internal chemistry of sleep, interfering with melatonin's natural rise and weakening sleep quality throughout the night. Lighter meals, earlier dinners, and gentle hydration help your body transition more naturally. One of the most soothing evening habits is quiet relaxation. Activities that gently lower cortisol and calm the nervous system. Slow breathing, stretching, warm baths, calm music, or even sitting still under dim lighting can help the body release stress from the day. These calming signals open the door for melatonin to rise without resistance. You're not forcing sleep. You're creating the environment that lets rest happen on its own. Perhaps the most important evening habit is consistency. When you go to bed and wake up at similar times each day, your circadian rhythm becomes strong and predictable. A strong rhythm produces stronger melatonin signals. it becomes easier to feel sleepy at the right time and easier to wake feeling refreshed. Even small variations are okay. The goal isn't perfection, but rhythm. These habits are not about rigid discipline. They're about creating the gentle conditions your biology understands. When your evenings become softer, dimmer, quieter, calmer, your body responds with ease. Melatonin doesn't need to be forced. It simply needs a clear space to rise. As we drift further into tonight's exploration, we'll look at how melatonin interacts with your emotions, your thoughts, and even your sense of time, shaping not just how you sleep, but how you feel throughout the day that follows. When evening arrives and melatonin begins its slow, gentle rise, something remarkable happens inside your emotional world. The shift is subtle, so subtle you might not notice it happening, yet it influences your thoughts, your feelings, and the way your mind processes the day. Melatonin doesn't just prepare your body for sleep, it also softens your internal experience, creating a psychological landscape that feels quieter and more reflective. During the day, your emotions move against the backdrop of alertness. Cortisol, sunlight, and mental activity keep your mind sharp and responsive. You're oriented outward, toward tasks, responsibilities, conversations, and decisions. But as melatonin builds, that orientation slowly reverses. Your attention turns inward. The noise of the day fades. The emotional tone of your mind becomes gentler, slower, quieter. One of the first changes melatonin influences is the intensity of emotional processing. The amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for threat detection and emotional reactivity, becomes less reactive at night. This reduction isn't dramatic, but it shifts your emotional state from alertness to introspection. You may find yourself thinking about things more softly, remembering moments more gently, or feeling a sense of emotional distance from stressful events. It's as if melatonin helps wrap your experiences in a thin layer of calm. This is one reason people often feel more reflective at night. Under the influence of melatonin, the mind becomes more fluid. Thoughts drift more easily. Memories surface in softer tones. There's less urgency to solve problems, less pressure to act, and more space for quiet observation. It's a psychological counterpart to the biological transition into darkness, your inner world dimming right alongside your external environment. But melatonin also interacts with serotonin, the neurotransmitter associated with emotional balance. Because melatonin is made from serotonin, the shift in production subtly changes how your brain uses this chemical. During the day, serotonin supports mood stability, social interaction, and emotional grounding. At night, when more serotonin is converted into melatonin, your brain shifts toward a state that supports rest rather than action. This redirection of resources helps explain why evenings often feel gentler, why nighttime conversations feel deeper, and why worries sometimes feel less sharp when softened by melatonin's rise. Interestingly, melatonin also influences the hippocampus, the brain region that stores memories. As melatonin increases, the hippocampus becomes more prepared for the memory processing that occurs during sleep. The emotional weight of memories can begin to lighten even before you fall asleep, paving the way for dreams and sleep cycles that help reorganize your experiences. This is part of why nighttime can feel like a natural moment for letting go. Your brain is shifting into a state designed for healing, not for holding on tightly. However, this soft emotional landscape can also become complicated when stress or anxiety is present. If your mind feels overwhelmed, melatonin's quieting influence might make certain emotions feel more noticeable, not less. Without the distractions of daytime, unprocessed worries can become more audible. This isn't melatonin causing distress. It's melatonin lowering the volume on everything else, allowing the thoughts you've been holding at arm's length to drift forward. This is why people sometimes report feeling emotional late at night, or why unresolved feelings often rise during quiet hours. But even then, melatonin shapes the experience in a way that promotes reflection rather than panic. You may feel your thoughts becoming slower, your emotional edges becoming rounder, your reactions becoming less sharp. Your mind is preparing not only for sleep, but for the emotional recalibration that happens during the night. Understanding this interplay makes nighttime feel less mysterious. Your emotional shifts aren't random. They're part of a predictable biological rhythm, one that prepares your brain for healing, restoration, and balance. Melatonin plays a central role in this process, softening your inner world so you can drift into the deep, therapeutic landscape of sleep. And as your body transitions further into night, melatonin will continue guiding both your physical and emotional systems toward the same quiet destination: rest, renewal, and the gentle release of the day. As melatonin settles deeper into your system and the night grows quieter, your brain prepares for one of the most remarkable processes it performs: the nightly repair of memory, emotion, and identity. Sleep is not just rest. It is a form of internal housekeeping, a time when your mind organizes the chaos of the day, cleans up unnecessary information, strengthens what matters, and gently releases what doesn't. Melatonin plays a quiet but essential role in setting the stage for all of this. When melatonin reaches its peak, it sends a signal to your brain that it's time to shift into the deeper rhythms of sleep. This shift is what allows the brain to move smoothly through cycles of light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep, the phase where most dreaming happens. Without melatonin's nightly guidance, these cycles can become scattered or irregular, and dreaming loses some of its restorative power. Dreaming is more than imagination. It's a form of emotional processing. During REM sleep, your brain revisits memories from the day, replaying them in symbolic or abstract forms. The amygdala, the brain's emotional center, is active during dreams, but other regions that create anxiety or fear responses are less reactive. This combination creates a unique state where you can revisit feelings without being overwhelmed by them. Melatonin doesn't create dreams, but it prepares the brain to enter the dream landscape safely and naturally. Think of melatonin as dimming the lights on the waking world, allowing your mind to wander into deeper territory. Under this dimmed light, your brain begins sorting through the emotional weight you carried during the day. Conversations are replayed, tensions are dissolved, and unresolved feelings are slowly untangled. It's a nighttime therapy session performed quietly, without your awareness, guided by the chemistry of sleep. Melatonin also interacts with the hippocampus, the structure responsible for forming long-term memories. When melatonin rises, the the hippocampus begins preparing to convert short-term memories into lasting ones. This is why people who sleep well tend to remember things more clearly, feel more mentally organized, and process emotions more evenly. Sleep doesn't erase what you've experienced. It reorganizes it, storing important memories while quietly discarding the clutter your mind no longer needs. Another fascinating effect of melatonin is how it protects the brain during this vulnerable state. As the body cools, muscles relax, and awareness fades, melatonin reduces inflammation and oxidative stress in the brain. These protective effects create a safe environment for memory consolidation, helping your neurons communicate with clean, stable signals. The brain becomes more efficient at its nighttime work, repairing what needs repair and strengthening what needs strengthening. In some people, irregular melatonin rhythms contribute to restless nights, fragmented dreams, or waking up feeling emotionally unsettled. It's not that something is wrong with their mind. It's simply that the brain didn't receive a clear enough signal that it was time to begin the deeper stages of sleep. Without the full rise of melatonin, the brain attempts its nightly work in a state that is too light, too fragile, or too disrupted. Dreaming feels choppy, memory feels scattered, emotion feels heavy. This is why consistent bedtime habits matter more than most people realize. When melatonin rises at the same time each night, the brain receives a predictable message. It's time to begin the repair process. And your internal systems align. Thoughts become quieter. The emotional landscape becomes softer. And the pathways that lead into dreaming open gently, inviting your mind into a space where healing becomes possible. Melatonin doesn't do this work alone, but without it, the entire architecture of sleep struggles to form. The hormone sets the stage, dims the lights, closes the curtains, and cues the first act of the nightly cycle. And in that soft darkness, your brain takes over, guiding you through worlds made of memory and emotion until morning returns. As we move further, we'll see how melatonin communicates with the rest of your body, influencing immunity, digestion, energy, and even the timing of your waking thoughts. As melatonin rises in the evening and your body begins drifting towards sleep, something remarkable happens beneath the surface. Your immune system becomes more active, more organized, and more efficient. It may seem counterintuitive that the body strengthens its defenses while you're unconscious, but this timing is not an accident. Melatonin plays a quiet but essential role in coordinating these protective processes, ensuring that your body repairs itself while your mind rests. During the day, your immune system stays alert but conservative. It monitors your environment, handles small threats, and stays ready to respond. But it doesn't do its deepest work until you sleep. That is because repairing tissues, fighting infection, and restoring cells all require energy, and your body can't allocate that energy fully while you're awake and active. Sleep provides the stillness that your immune system needs, and melatonin signals that the window of restoration has opened. Melatonin acts as a powerful antioxidant, protecting your cells from the wear and tear of daily life. When melatonin enters your bloodstream at night, it reduces oxidative stress, the type of cellular strain caused by metabolism, environmental exposure, and everyday physiological processes. This protection creates a calmer environment for your immune system to work. Without melatonin's antioxidant support, your cells would be more vulnerable to damage and nighttime repair would be less efficient. But melatonin does more than protect. It coordinates. It communicates with immune cells directly, helping them know when to activate and when to rest. Certain immune functions peak at night. Cytokine production increases. Inflammation is regulated, and immune cells circulate more effectively. These are not reactions to threats, but part of the nightly housekeeping that keeps you healthy. Melatonin guides the timing of these responses, ensuring they occur during sleep rather than during the day when they would make you feel fatigued or unfocused. This rhythm explains why you often feel sleepier when you're sick. Your body increases melatonin sensitivity, so you'll rest more, giving your immune system longer windows of uninterrupted repair. The drowsiness you feel isn't a weakness. It's a biological strategy, gently encouraging your body to shift energy away from movement and toward healing. Even small disruptions in melatonin's rise can influence immunity. Bright light late at night, irregular sleep schedules, or chronic stress can blunt melatonin production, which in turn weakens the depth and timing of immune activity. People who get too little sleep or experience frequent circadian disruption often become more vulnerable to minor infections, experience slower recovery, or feel lingering fatigue. This isn't because their immune system is broken. It's because the nightly signal that coordinates repair is arriving late, softly, or inconsistently. On the other hand, when melatonin rises predictably, your body enters a state of internal cooperation. Cells repair damage quietly, inflammation is balanced, immune responses become more precise, responding only where needed. The body uses the darkness to recover from the demands of the day, preparing you gently for the next one. There is a deep comfort in knowing that while you sleep, your body continues working on your behalf. Melatonin doesn't simply help you drift off. It orchestrates the healing that makes tomorrow possible. Every night, without effort or awareness, your body takes the time it needs to rest, repair, and restore its sense of balance. As we continue tonight's journey, we'll explore how melatonin interacts with your metabolism, your digestion, and even the way your energy unfolds throughout the day, revealing how this simple hormone shapes far more than just sleep. As evening settles in and melatonin begins its rise, your digestive system quietly shifts into a different mode, slower, gentler, less focused on processing food, and more focused on resting. Just as melatonin helps guide your brain towards sleep, it also signals your digestive organs that the active part of the day is ending. This nighttime slowdown isn't a flaw in human biology. It's one of the oldest rhythms we carry, shaped by thousands of years of living in harmony with natural light. During daylight hours, digestion is strong and efficient. Your stomach, intestines, pancreas, and liver all work in coordinated patterns to break down food, absorb nutrients, and convert what you eat into usable energy. These organs rely heavily on the internal cues that tell them when to ramp up activity. Cues dominated by light, movement, and cortisol. But when melatonin begins to rise, those cues shift. Your body transitions from daytime metabolism into nighttime restoration. One of melatonin's first effects on digestion is its influence on gastric motility, the movement that pushes food through your stomach and intestines. As melatonin climbs, motility naturally slows, allowing your digestive system to rest. This is why heavy meals late at night can feel disruptive or uncomfortable. Your body is biologically shifting into a mode that prioritizes repair over digestion. When you eat close to bedtime, you're asking your system to stay active when it's trying to wind down. Melatonin also influences the release of digestive enzymes. During the day, enzymes surge in response to meals, assisting with digestion and absorption. At night, melatonin helps reduce enzyme production, signaling that the body should enter a state of quiet maintenance instead of active processing. Even your liver adjusts its workload, shifting toward detoxification and tissue repair instead of breaking down large amounts of food. This nighttime digestive shift can explain why some people feel bloated or restless after eating late. It's not that something is wrong with their stomach, it's that their internal rhythms are mismatched. The digestive system is trying to slow down, while the body is still receiving a signal to work. Melatonin, ever gentle, simply does what it has always done. Tells the body it's time for quiet. Another fascinating aspect of melatonin's relationship with digestion is its influence on blood glucose regulation. At night, your body becomes more sensitive to changes in blood sugar. Late-night eating, especially sugar-heavy snacks, can cause fluctuations that interfere with sleep or lead to middle-of-the-night wakefulness. When melatonin is high, your cells are not primed to manage large amounts of glucose. This is a natural design, shaped by a time when humans rarely ate after dark. The gut and the brain are deeply connected through the gut-brain axis, a bidirectional communication network that influences mood, digestion, and sleep. Melatonin interacts with this system as well. In fact, the digestive tract contains its own supply of melatonin in quantities far larger than the pineal gland produces. Though this gastrointestinal melatonin serves different purposes. It acts as an antioxidant, protects the lining of the gut, and supports repair during the night. Even in your digestive system, melatonin is a guardian of rest. People often underestimate how much digestion influences sleep. A calm digestive system supports deeper rest. A digestive system asked to work too hard at night can send signals of discomfort, restlessness, or imbalance. Melatonin's rise is a cue that says, it's time to soften, it's time to slow. When your evening habits align with this natural slowdown, lighter dinners, softer lighting, less late-night snacking, your body moves more easily into night mode. Melatonin rises unhindered, digestion winds down smoothly, and your internal systems work together instead of in opposition. As you continue drifting through tonight's journey, you'll discover how melatonin shapes not only the way you sleep, but the way your energy unfolds throughout the next day, revealing how deeply this quiet hormone influences your entire rhythm of life. Melatonin's role doesn't end when you fall asleep. It continues quietly through the night, shaping the depth of your rest, influencing the architecture of your dreams, and preparing your body for the hours ahead. And when the first signs of morning arrive, the subtle shift in light through your window, the natural rise in temperature, the soft return of daytime hormones, melatonin begins its final task, helping you transition gently into wakefulness. Your morning energy isn't random. It's deeply tied to how smoothly melatonin fades. In a well-regulated rhythm, melatonin levels peak during the night, remain steady while you sleep, and then gradually decline as dawn approaches. This decline doesn't jerk you awake. It slowly removes the chemical softness that kept you still and quiet through the night. As melatonin ebbs, the body's daytime systems lift themselves into place. One of the first changes is the gradual rise of cortisol, not in the stressful sense, but in the natural, healthy sense. Cortisol in the morning is like a gentle internal sunrise, a signal that helps you feel alert, grounded, and ready to move. The transition from melatonin to cortisol is meant to be seamless. When the balance is right, you feel awake without strain. Your thoughts feel clear. Your body feels stable. Even your mood feels smoother. This is why mornings can feel so different depending on the quality of your sleep. If melatonin didn't rise enough the night before, if it was delayed by stress, bright light, or irregular routines, you may wake feeling groggy, anxious, or unfocused. It's not a sign of weakness or lack of discipline. It's simply your body trying to shift gears without having completed the full nighttime cycle. Another fascinating aspect of this transition is how body temperature influences wakefulness. As melatonin fades, your core temperature begins to rise. This warming effect is one of the strongest triggers for waking up naturally. Even before your mind becomes fully aware, your body knows the day is beginning. The change is so subtle, you don't notice it. A slight increase in circulation, a shift in metabolic activity, a quiet awakening at the cellular level. This connection between temperature and melatonin is the reason people often wake earlier in warm environments or sleep more deeply in cooler ones. When melatonin is high, your body prefers the coolness of night. When melatonin falls, warmth gently signals that sleep is ending. Your internal thermostat is deeply intertwined with your circadian rhythm. Light, once again, plays a major role. Morning light, especially natural sunlight, is one of the strongest signals that tells your brain to stop melatonin production. Even a brief moment of daylight exposure can help anchor your circadian rhythm for the entire day. When light hits your eyes in the morning, your internal clock resets, making it easier for melatonin to rise again at night. This daily resetting is why spending time outside, even for a few minutes, can have such a profound effect on your energy. On the other hand, when mornings are spent in dim light, or when you wake at inconsistent times, your internal rhythm becomes less certain. Melatonin may linger longer than it should, leaving you feeling foggy or unsteady. You may find it hard to start the day, not because you lack motivation, but because your chemistry hasn't fully transitioned from night into morning. Melatonin also influences the balance of serotonin, since the two hormones share the same precursor. As melatonin fades after sunrise, serotonin becomes more available again, supporting your mood and sense of well-being throughout the day. This handoff between melatonin and serotonin creates the emotional steadiness you feel when your sleep cycle is aligned, a sense of clarity, calmness, and quiet confidence as the day unfolds. And this cycle repeats every day without effort. Melatonin rises with darkness, guides you through the night, and then steps aside as morning arrives. It's one of the most consistent rhythms in your body, shaping not only how you sleep, but how you feel, think, and move when you wake. For most of human history, melatonin followed a perfectly predictable pattern. rising with sunset, guiding rest during the night, and fading gently at dawn. But modern life has introduced a number of forces that can push this ancient rhythm off course. Not through any fault of your own, simply through the way our world is built now. Bright lights, irregular schedules, stress, travel, technology, and even the layout of our homes all influence how melatonin rises and falls. And when the timing becomes disrupted, your entire sense of night can feel different. One of the biggest influences is artificial light, especially bright or blue-toned light after dark. When you turn on overhead lights late in the evening or look at screens close to bedtime, your eyes send a message to your brain that daytime is still happening. Even if you're tired, even if you feel ready to rest, your internal clock pauses melatonin production out of confusion. Instead of rising smoothly around the same time each night, melatonin gets delayed, sometimes by minutes, sometimes by hours. This delay can create what scientists call a phase shift, where your body believes bedtime should be later than your schedule allows. You might lie awake at night despite exhaustion, or struggle to wake in the morning even after a full night's sleep. These patterns often feel like personal failures, but they are simply the result of melatonin receiving mixed signals from the environment. Another major disruptor is stress. When stress hormones rise in the evening, they override melatonin's signal. The body interprets stress as danger, and danger, even imagined danger, demands alertness. Melatonin cannot rise properly when cortisol remains high. This can lead to a tired but wired feeling at night, where your body longs for rest but your mind stays active. Many people misinterpret this as insomnia or anxiety, when it is simply a mismatch between their emotional state and their biological rhythm. Irregular sleep schedules also play a role. Staying up late one night, waking early the next, napping during the day, or shifting schedules on weekends can confuse the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock that coordinates your circadian rhythm. Melatonin thrives on consistency. When bedtime varies widely, the hormone struggles to anticipate darkness, leading to unpredictable sleepiness and uneven energy throughout the day. Travel introduces another challenge. Crossing time zones forces your internal clock to adjust quickly, but melatonin cannot shift instantly. It tries to align with the new light-dark cycle, but the process takes time. Jet lag is essentially the experience of melatonin being out of sync. Your body still thinks it's night when the new environment says it's day, or vice versa. Until melatonin resets, your sleep feels irregular and your energy misaligned. Even seasonal changes can influence melatonin. During winter, when nights are long and days are dim, melatonin production can begin earlier or last longer into the morning. Many people feel sleepier or more sluggish during these months, not because something is wrong with them, but because their internal rhythms are adjusting to the softer light of the season. Finally, aging naturally affects melatonin production. As people grow older, the pineal gland may produce less melatonin or release it with weaker signals. This can lead to lighter sleep, earlier awakenings, or a greater sensitivity to nighttime disruptions. Yet even then, melatonin remains responsive. Exposure to natural light during the day, dim lighting in the evening, and consistent routines still help strengthen the rhythm. The key to understanding all of these disruptions is this: melatonin is not fragile, it is responsive. It listens to your environment. It listens to your habits. It listens to light, darkness, consistency, and stress. And even when it falls out of sync, it can return to balance with surprisingly small changes. When your melatonin rhythm drifts out of alignment, it can leave you feeling disconnected from your own nights. Tired when you want to be awake, alert when you want to rest, and unsure why your body isn't responding the way it used to. But melatonin is far more flexible than it feels. It doesn't need force or discipline to reset. It only needs clear signals given consistently and gently to remember its natural timing. The first and most powerful signal is morning light. Natural sunlight, even for a few minutes, sends a strong message to your internal clock that the day has begun. This resets the timing of every hormone in your circadian rhythm, including the moment melatonin will rise later that night. When your eyes take in morning light, the suprachiasmatic nucleus begins its countdown. Roughly 14 to 16 hours later, melatonin will begin to rise. At its core, melatonin isn't guided by bedtime. It's guided by the moment your day begins. This means that if your melatonin feels delayed, if you lie awake past the hour you hope to sleep, simply shifting your morning light exposure slightly earlier can have a profound effect across days. You don't need long sunbathing sessions or intense brightness. A walk outside, sitting by a bright window, or opening your curtains soon after waking is enough to mark the start of the day in your biology. Evening darkness is the second key. The clearer the contrast between day and night, the more confidently melatonin rises. Dimming your lights earlier, switching from overhead lighting to lamps, or choosing warm-colored bulbs helps your brain understand the shift into night. Screens, with their high blue light content, can blur this transition. Every little adjustment, lowering brightness, enabling night mode, or setting devices aside slightly earlier, gives your internal clock space to prepare. A lesser-known factor is regular meal times. Your digestive system follows its own circadian rhythm, and when meals occur at wildly different times each day, the signals to your brain become mixed. Eating dinner earlier and keeping your eating window consistent helps your body anticipate nightfall. Digestion doesn't have to work late, and melatonin isn't competing against signals that say stay active. Movement also plays a role. Exercise during the day, especially in the morning or afternoon, helps reinforce your circadian rhythm. When your muscles work earlier, your internal systems know they need to wind down later. On the other hand, intense exercise close to bedtime can delay melatonin's rise by increasing core body temperature and stimulating wakefulness. Temperature itself is a powerful cue. When melatonin rises, your body wants to cool down. A warm bath or shower an hour before bed, something that sounds counterintuitive, actually helps the process. The warmth brings blood toward the surface of your skin, and as you step out, your core temperature drops. This drop mimics the natural cooling of night, giving melatonin an easy path upward. Consistency sets all of these rhythms into motion. You don't need perfection, only gentle repetition. Going to bed and waking at similar times anchors your internal rhythm, telling your brain when to expect darkness and when to expect light. Even small variations are fine, as long as you maintain a general pattern. Melatonin thrives when your body knows what's coming. If you've ever felt like your sleep has slipped out of your hands, it's important to know that melatonin doesn't judge your habits or resist change. It responds faithfully to the signals you give it. And those signals don't need to be loud. They can be as simple as turning off a bright light, opening your curtains in the morning, or choosing calmer activities in the late hours. Your body hasn't forgotten how to sleep. It hasn't lost its ability to rest. It's simply waiting for the cues that once shaped its nights naturally, cues that are still available, no matter how busy or illuminated the world becomes. When you offer your body clarity, even in small steps, melatonin rises with confidence again, and the nights that felt scattered or uncertain begin to settle into a rhythm that feels peaceful, predictable, and deeply human. Even when melatonin is rising exactly when it should, many people find their minds becoming unusually busy at night. Thoughts feel louder, emotions feel sharper, memories drift in unexpectedly. It's one of the most common experiences of the modern evening, lying in bed with a mind that feels wide awake, despite a body that wants to rest. And melatonin plays an interesting role in this contrast. As melatonin increases, your brain transitions from outward focus to inward focus. The shift is gentle but powerful. During the day, your attention is scattered outward, toward tasks, conversations, responsibilities, decisions, and external stimulation. At night, when melatonin rises, that stimulation fades. What's left is the internal landscape, your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own history. With fewer distractions competing for space, your mind becomes more aware of what's been sitting quietly in the background all day. This inward shift is a natural part of your circadian rhythm. It's not a flaw in your mind. It's a reflection of how the brain prepares for sleep. When melatonin is present, the brain begins sorting through information, making sense of the day, and loosening its grip on rigid patterns of thinking. But if the day has been emotionally heavy, stressful, or overstimulating, the quiet of night can make those thoughts feel amplified. Another reason the mind feels active at night is because melatonin reduces external alertness without fully suppressing internal activity. Your senses dim slightly, sounds feel softer, the world feels slower, but the brain is still busy organizing information. You may notice memories rising to the surface or worries replaying because your mind is starting the early stages of the same process that becomes dreaming once you fall asleep. Internal reorganization. In modern life, this inward shift can collide with the habits of the day. Constant stimulation, notifications, screens, noise, conversation keeps your mind externally occupied. The moment you lie down, the sudden silence exposes the backlog of thoughts that never had room to be processed. Melatonin's gentle dimming only highlights this contrast. On one hand, your body wants to rest. On the other, your mind finally has space to catch up. Melatonin also softens the boundary between wakefulness and dreaming. This is why, at night, your thoughts can become more visual, more symbolic, or more emotionally charged. You may drift into half dreams or experience that drifting sensation where your mind feels untethered. It's not insomnia. It's your brain easing into the architecture of sleep. The transition simply feels more noticeable when your day has been intense or overstimulated. For some people, melatonin's inward pull also brings unresolved emotions forward. Thoughts about relationships, fears, hopes, disappointments, and responsibilities can surface more easily. During the day, these feelings often stay tucked behind the busyness of tasks. At night, when melatonin reduces the mind's external focus, the internal world becomes clearer. This isn't a sign of emotional instability. It's your brain beginning its nightly emotional cleanup before dreaming takes over. One of the most comforting things to understand is this: a busy mind at night doesn't mean your sleep is doomed. Melatonin continues rising quietly even as your mind processes the day. Your body is still preparing for rest. The transition simply feels more noticeable in modern life because the contrast between daytime stimulation and nighttime quiet has become so wide. Even small evening rituals can help bridge that gap. Dim lighting, slow breathing, warm showers, journaling, gentle reading, or any activity that creates a smoother handoff between day and night. These habits ease the shift into melatonin's domain, giving your nervous system time to settle before the internal work begins. You're not broken for having racing thoughts at night. Your mind is simply doing what it was designed to do in the presence of rising melatonin, turning inward, softening, processing, preparing. And once that natural process completes its early steps, sleep arrives more easily, carrying you into the deeper rhythms of the night. Melatonin supplements are everywhere. Shelves lined with gummies, tablets, sprays, and dissolvable strips promising deeper sleep, faster sleep, better sleep. Because melatonin is a hormone your body already makes, it's easy to assume that taking more of it will simply strengthen the signal and help you drift off. But supplements interact with your biology in far more subtle and complex ways. Understanding what they can and can't do is one of the clearest paths to restoring confidence in your own sleep rhythm. The first thing to understand is that melatonin supplements do not work like sleeping pills. They don't sedate you or override your internal rhythms. Instead, they mimic the natural timing signal that darkness gives your brain. Melatonin supplements essentially tap your internal clock on the shoulder and whisper, "Night has begun." For some people, especially those struggling with delayed sleep cycles or irregular schedules, this cue can be helpful, acting like a gentle nudge toward rest. But melatonin doesn't create sleepiness on its own. It only helps create the conditions where sleepiness can emerge naturally. This is why some people take melatonin and don't feel anything at all. If their bedtime habits, light exposure, or stress levels are overriding the signal, the supplement can only do so much. It can't force sleep. It can only reinforce the message that the brain should begin shifting toward night mode. Another important detail is dosage. Many supplements contain far more melatonin than your body naturally produces. The pineal gland releases tiny amounts, usually less than 1 milligram over the entire night. In contrast, supplements often contain 3, 5, or even 10 milligrams. High doses don't necessarily make the signal stronger. In some cases, they may actually make it harder for your rhythm to stay consistent. The brain is sensitive to timing, not quantity. Low doses, often between 0.3 and 1 milligram, are closer to the body's natural rhythm and tend to work more smoothly. timing matters too. Taking melatonin too close to bedtime can actually delay sleep rather than encourage it, because melatonin's effect on the internal clock is strongest slightly before your natural bedtime. Many experts recommend taking supplements 1 to 2 hours before you hope to sleep. This timing mirrors the natural rise of your own melatonin, which usually begins early in the evening, long before your head touches the pillow. It's also important to know that melatonin supplements are most helpful in specific situations, such as jet lag, shift work, delayed sleep phase, or occasional nights when your rhythm has drifted. They are less effective for chronic insomnia, anxiety-driven sleeplessness, or sleep disrupted by stress or environment. In those cases, melatonin isn't the root issue. The nervous system is. Supplements can offer support, but they can't solve underlying emotional or behavioral patterns. One of the most common misunderstandings is that melatonin supplements build dependence. They don't interact with the brain's reward pathways the way sedatives do, and they don't reduce your body's ability to make melatonin naturally. Your pineal gland doesn't shut down when supplements are used sparingly or at low doses. In fact, occasional melatonin use is often most effective when combined with healthy evening habits, dimming lights, creating calm routines, reducing screen brightness, and allowing time for the mind to soften. However, taking melatonin too frequently or in high doses can confuse your internal clock. Flooding the system with excessive melatonin, especially at inconsistent times, can blur the brain's understanding of when night truly begins. This is why supplements should be used with intention, rather than as a nightly crutch. The real goal is always to support your natural rhythm, not replace it. Melatonin supplements offer something gentle, a reminder, a small nudge toward the rhythm your body already knows. They can be a helpful tool, especially when used thoughtfully. But the most powerful influence on your melatonin rhythm will always be the world around you, the light you see, the routines you keep, the environment you create, and the moments of calm you allow yourself before bed. As we continue through tonight's exploration, we'll look more deeply at how melatonin interacts with mood, sleep disorders, and the subtle signals your body uses to navigate the night. As melatonin rises and the world around you softens into evening, your emotional state begins to shift in ways that are subtle but deeply meaningful. Sleep and mood are intertwined, woven together through chemical signals that ebb and flow across the night. Melatonin doesn't directly control your emotions, but it creates the conditions in which emotional repair becomes possible. Conditions your mind depends on to stay balanced, steady, and resilient. During the day, your emotional landscape is shaped by countless stimuli, conversations, responsibilities, challenges, surprises, and the rapid pace of modern life. Your nervous system stays alert, your senses remain open, and your mind is constantly evaluating the world around you. This outward focus keeps you functional and responsive, but it also means your emotional processing happens in fragments, a bit here, a bit there, rarely getting the uninterrupted space it needs. When melatonin begins to rise, something shifts. The brain's attention pulls inward. External noise dims. Your emotional world becomes more noticeable, not because the feelings have grown stronger, but because melatonin lowers the volume on everything else. Thoughts that were drowned out by the busyness of the day begin to surface, Worries, hopes, memories, reflections, all of it gently rises into awareness as the mind transitions toward rest. This is why evenings often feel more emotional or introspective. It's not a flaw in your psychology. It's a natural part of the melatonin-driven shift into nighttime processing. The brain is preparing for sleep, where emotional memories will be sorted, softened, and reorganized. Melatonin sets the stage for this process, encouraging your mind to slow down and turn inward. The amygdala, the region responsible for threat detection, becomes less reactive under the influence of melatonin. At the same time, regions tied to memory and meaning begin preparing for the reorganizing work that sleep will soon perform. This combination creates the soft, reflective tone that so many people feel in the late hours. The world becomes quieter, and your inner life becomes clearer. For some, this clarity brings comfort. For others, it can bring up worries that were pushed aside during the day. But even when late-night thoughts feel heavy, melatonin is guiding your brain toward healing. Nighttime emotions aren't a sign of instability. They're the beginning of the brain's nightly repair cycle, a cycle that can't happen when the mind is focused outward. Melatonin also interacts with serotonin, the neurotransmitter that supports mood stability. Because melatonin is synthesized from serotonin, its rise signals a shift in how your brain allocates emotional resources. At night, the brain becomes less interested in taking action and more interested in reflection. You're meant to feel quieter, less reactive, more inward. This calmness prepares your emotional circuits for the deep reset that occurs during REM sleep. When melatonin is disrupted, mood often suffers. Irregular sleep schedules, light at night, or chronic stress can interfere with melatonin's rise, which delays or weakens the emotional repair that deeper sleep provides. People may feel anxious in the evening, irritable the next day, or emotionally flat, not because something is wrong with them, but because their nightly emotional reset didn't have the space to unfold. The comforting truth is that emotional stability is not solely determined by your daytime experiences. It is restored at night, and melatonin is a crucial part of that restoration. When the hormone rises predictably, your brain receives the signal to begin its emotional housekeeping. It begins preparing you for the softer hours ahead, where dreams will reshape your experiences into forms that feel lighter, smaller, or more manageable by morning. You don't have to control this process. You don't even have to notice it happening. Your body already knows what to do. Melatonin is simply the gentle guide that leads your mind to the place where repairs can begin, quietly, consistently, and with remarkable care. As melatonin settles fully into your system and the night grows deeper, your brain begins moving through one of the most intricate processes it performs: the layered architecture of sleep. Sleep is not one long, continuous state, but a repeating sequence of stages: light sleep, deep restorative sleep, and REM sleep, each with its own purpose. Melatonin doesn't control these stages directly, but it opens the door that allows them to unfold cleanly, in the right order, at the right time. When you first drift off, your brain enters stage 1, a light, transitional phase where awareness fades but hasn't fully disappeared. Melatonin supports this stage by reducing sensory input. sounds feel distant, light feels dimmer, and your thoughts begin blending into softer imagery. This stage is delicate, almost fragile, and melatonin ensures that your system doesn't cling too tightly to wakefulness. As your body relaxes further, you slip into stage 2, where brain waves slow and your muscles loosen. This is the stage that makes up most of your sleep, a steady rhythm of mental quieting. Melatonin's cooling effect on your core temperature deepens here, allowing your body to let go of the tension it collected during the day. Heart rate slows, breathing evens out, and the brain begins conserving energy for deeper cycles. Then comes the most restorative part of the night, deep sleep, also known as slow wave sleep. This is when the mind becomes almost completely disconnected from external awareness. Melatonin doesn't force deep sleep, but without its earlier rise, the transition into this stage becomes harder and less stable. During deep sleep, the brain clears metabolic waste, a nightly detox that keeps cognitive function sharp. Your muscles repair, your immune system strengthens, and your energy stores replenish. Deep sleep is the foundation of physical and mental restoration, and melatonin's timing is what helps this stage begin at its peak. The next phase is REM sleep, the stage of vivid dreaming, emotional integration, and memory consolidation. REM sleep isn't necessarily peaceful. The brain becomes more active, heart rate fluctuates, and breathing becomes less predictable. But melatonin sets the stage for REM by guiding the brain through earlier stages smoothly, creating the conditions that allow dreams to emerge in their natural cycles. Without a clear melatonin signal earlier in the night, REM can become fragmented, shortened, or delayed, leaving you groggier or emotionally unsettled the next day. These stages repeat several times throughout the night, forming a cycle that typically lasts between 90 minutes and 2 hours. Melatonin ensures that you begin the first cycle at the right time, which then aligns the cycles that follow. When melatonin's rise is delayed by screens, stress, or irregular routines, the entire structure shifts later. This can compress the cycles, shorten deep sleep, and reduce the amount of REM your brain receives. Even if you sleep for 8 hours, the sleep may not feel as restorative. The beauty of melatonin's influence is that it doesn't micromanage sleep. It isn't controlling the content of your dreams or the depth of your rest. It simply signals the starting point with enough clarity that your brain can take over, moving through each stage in the order it's meant to. Without that signal, sleep becomes like a story missing its opening chapter. It can still unfold, but the structure feels less steady. People often blame themselves when their sleep feels shallow or inconsistent, assuming their body is malfunctioning. But in many cases, the issue isn't sleep itself. It's the timing of melatonin. When darkness arrives clearly, when stress softens, when light is reduced, melatonin rises on time. And when it does, sleep architecture strengthens naturally, without force or effort. You don't need to understand every stage of sleep to benefit from them. Your body already knows the sequence. Melatonin simply provides the whisper that says, "Begin the night now." And once that whisper is heard, the deeper rhythms of your internal world guide you through the hours that heal, restore, and rebuild you. As melatonin deepens in your system, something interesting happens to your perception of time. minutes can feel stretched or compressed. Hours may pass without you noticing, or you may feel as though you're drifting outside the flow of time altogether. This soft distortion isn't a sign of confusion or imbalance. It's part of the natural shift that melatonin creates as your brain transitions from the structured patterns of daytime thinking into the fluid, dreamlike patterns of night. During the day, your sense of time is anchored by external cues: sunlight, movement, conversations, tasks, noises, and the constant interplay of your environment. Your brain tracks these cues to maintain a clear timeline of events. But as melatonin rises and reduces sensory input, those anchors begin to fade. The brain becomes less focused on the passing of minutes and more attuned to internal rhythms, breathing, heartbeat, drifting thoughts. Without the usual markers, time begins to feel softer, less linear. This is why lying in bed can sometimes feel like a gentle float through waves of awareness. You might drift in and out of light sleep without realizing it, or watch your thoughts blur into images, unsure whether minutes or seconds have passed. Melatonin opens the door to this experience by quieting the regions of the brain responsible for measurement and analysis, giving more space to the areas responsible for imagination and memory. For some people, this shift brings a sense of peace, a feeling of being wrapped in a slow, warm fog where time moves quietly in the background. For others, the fading structure of time can feel unfamiliar. But both experiences are natural responses to nighttime chemistry. When melatonin is present, the brain is literally preparing for dreaming, where time often behaves differently or loses meaning altogether. Research shows that during early sleep and melatonin-rich hours, brain waves slow significantly. Slow wave activity supports physical restoration, while RM-related activity supports emotional and memory processing. Both contribute to the sensation of time slipping or becoming fluid. This distortion isn't harmful. It's the same mechanism that allows dreams to compress hours of experience into what may feel like moments. Melatonin also influences the default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for introspection and internal thought. When this network becomes more active, as it does in long stretches of quiet, time perception naturally shifts. Your mind becomes less interested in the clock and more invested in internal narratives, drifting memories, and the soft edges of thought. This distorted sense of time is one reason sleep can feel sudden, as if you were awake only moments before, even though an hour may have passed. It's not that you fall asleep instantly. It's that melatonin guides you through a gradual descent where time loses its usual structure, blending seamlessly into sleep without you noticing the threshold. When melatonin rhythms are disrupted, people often report feeling stuck in time, nights that feel endless, or evenings where sleep won't begin. This is usually because the internal cues that support the transition into soft, fluid time aren't lining up with the external world. The brain is waiting for a signal that hasn't arrived yet, making the night feel longer or more rigid. But when melatonin flows naturally, when the environment is dim, stress is low, and the rhythm aligns, time becomes gentle again. Nights pass quietly. The transition into sleep feels effortless, and the mind releases its grip on the ticking of the clock, allowing rest to unfold in its own organic way. You don't have to do anything to create this shift. You don't need to control your perception. Your body handles it automatically, guiding you toward the softer, dreamlike sense of time that supports deep restoration. As the night carries on and melatonin rises, your body starts performing a series of quiet adjustments, almost like a nightly checklist, to decide whether it's safe enough to fully release into sleep. Your muscles loosen, your breathing slows, your heart rate eases down a few beats. These shifts don't happen automatically. They depend on signals your nervous system has been reading all evening long, trying to understand whether the environment around you is predictable, calm, and secure. What's fascinating is that this safety checking process is older than civilization itself. Long before electricity, long before structured homes and locks and schedules, humans relied on subtle cues in their surroundings to know when it was safe to rest. A steady fire, familiar sounds, the presence of other people, the absence of danger. All of these conditions help the nervous system determine whether it could allow melatonin's influence to deepen fully. Even now, with modern comforts and far fewer nighttime threats, your body still performs this ancient evaluation. Melatonin may be rising in your bloodstream, but your nervous system will not hand over full control unless it senses a stable environment. This is why people often sleep poorly in new places, or why certain rooms feel more restful than others. The mind may know you're safe, but the body needs its own form of reassurance. Darkness alone isn't enough. It must be peaceful darkness. Dim lighting, soft sounds, and gentle routines all serve as signals that the environment is predictable. These cues tell your nervous system that it can relax its guard. And when that happens, melatonin's effects deepen. Your core temperature drops more easily. Your muscles release more fully. Your attention withdraws from the external world and turns inward with less resistance. This is also why sudden noises, bright lights, or emotional tension can interrupt sleep so easily. They reactivate that ancient safety checking system, pulling your nervous system back into alertness. Melatonin doesn't disappear in those moments. It simply pauses, waiting for the body to settle again before guiding you back toward rest. Even small evening choices can influence this balance. The softness of your bedding, the familiarity of your surroundings, the tone of your lighting, the predictability of your evening routine. They provide subtle reassurance that the environment is safe. This reassurance allows melatonin to guide you into deeper stages of sleep rather than hovering at the lighter surface levels. Once the body feels secure, melatonin finally has the space to do what it does best: dim the internal world, quiet the senses, and support the deep restoration that unfolds through the night. As melatonin gathers in your system and the outside world fades into darkness, something subtle but deeply human begins to happen. The night takes on a different emotional texture. Conversations feel deeper. Thoughts feel closer. The air itself seems quieter, as if the world has shifted into a softer register. This intimacy isn't just atmospheric, it's biological. Melatonin gently reshapes the way you connect with yourself and with your environment. During the day, your mind is outwardly focused. Your attention moves toward tasks, people, responsibilities, and constant motion. But at night, melatonin dims that outward pull. It narrows your focus to what's close, your breath, your body, your immediate surroundings. This narrowing naturally creates a sense of closeness and introspection. You become more aware of your inner world, and the world around you feels smaller, warmer, easier to hold. This is why nighttime conversations often feel more honest or vulnerable. The brain is shifting away from the logic-driven patterns of daytime and toward the reflective, emotional, symbolic patterns that prepare it for dreaming. It's not that you suddenly become a different person at night. It's that melatonin turns down the volume on the external world, making the internal world more audible. Even sounds behave differently in this state. You may notice the soft hum of the room, the quiet of the night outside, or the rhythm of your own breathing. With fewer distractions and fewer competing stimuli, your nervous system becomes more receptive to subtle sensations. The body interprets this as intimacy, closeness with the moment, closeness with your thoughts, closeness with yourself. Melatonin also enhances the brain's sensitivity to warmth and comfort. Blankets feel softer. Dim lighting feels more soothing. The temperature of the room becomes a quiet signal of safety. This combination of sensory softness and emotional openness explains why nighttime routines, reading, journaling, stretching, or simply lying still, feel so nourishing. They align with the brain's shift toward introspection, making small comforts feel larger and more meaningful. Because melatonin reduces alertness, the mind becomes less guarded. Walls that feel necessary during the day, the mental boundaries that help you function, perform, or protect yourself, soften at night. Your thoughts may flow more freely, memories may surface more easily, and emotions may feel closer to the surface. This state isn't weakness. It's the mind preparing for the deep emotional processing that will happen during sleep. The intimacy of night can also make your world feel safer and more contained. With melatonin dampening external attention, even small spaces can feel cozy, like a personal refuge. This is why dim rooms, warm blankets, and quiet corners feel especially comforting at the end of the day. They match the internal softness melatonin creates. For many people, this nighttime intimacy becomes a familiar rhythm, a time when they feel most themselves, unfiltered by the demands of the day. The world shrinks to what's immediately present, and in that smaller, quieter space, rest becomes more accessible. Melatonin doesn't create this state alone, but it begins the transition. It gently shifts your perception inward, setting the stage for the emotional, psychological, and physical restoration that unfolds during the night. You move from the broad focus of daytime into the warm glow of nighttime introspection, and your entire internal landscape adjusts to support the journey ahead. As the night gradually ends and the first traces of morning light touch your surroundings, melatonin begins to step aside. Its work is gentle and unseen, but the moment it starts to decline, your internal world shifts once again. The softness of night gives way to a sense of structure, clarity, and renewed steadiness. This transition is one of the most delicate rhythms in your body. The nightly arc from introspection back into engagement with the waking world. When melatonin levels drop, your brain begins reactivating the systems that stayed quiet during the night. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, self-control, planning, and logical thinking, slowly regain strength. This is why worries that feel overwhelming at night often feel smaller or more manageable in the morning. The emotional weight of nighttime thoughts lightens as daylight hormones rise and the rational mind returns to full power. At the same time, your body temperature rises. This warming is a natural part of the circadian rhythm and one of the clearest physiological cues that sleep is ending. The warmth signals your muscles, digestion, and metabolism to become active again. Even before your eyes open, your internal systems are already preparing for motion, focus, and interaction. Light plays its part as well. Morning sunlight, even in small amounts, sends a clear message to your internal clock. The day has begun. When light reaches the eyes, the suprachiasmatic nucleus immediately tells the pineal gland to stop producing melatonin. Cortisol begins its natural rise, not the stressful spike associated with anxiety, but the healthy, stabilizing lift that brings alertness and energy. This chemistry creates the emotional steadiness that helps you feel grounded as you start your day. Melatonin's decline also marks the return of serotonin, which shares the same biological pathway. As serotonin becomes more available, mood tends to brighten, thoughts feel clearer, and the emotional fog of nighttime introspection fades. It's the quiet handoff between the chemistry of night and the chemistry of day. A shift so smooth that you rarely notice it happening. Even your sense of time changes again. The fluid, drifting perception of the night becomes anchored by familiar routines, morning light, and the structure of the day. Melatonin no longer blurs the edges of your mind. Instead, your internal world becomes sharper, more focused, and more oriented outward. What's remarkable is that this transition happens reliably, even after nights when sleep feels restless or incomplete. The body is deeply committed to restoring balance each morning. Melatonin fades at dawn whether you slept soundly or not, guiding your internal systems back towards stability so you can engage with the day ahead. Understanding this rhythm can be comforting. Nights when your thoughts feel heavy, scattered, or emotional don't last forever. Morning always arrives with a different chemistry, a chemistry that supports clarity, steadiness, and renewed perspective. The way you feel at night is not a permanent state. It's simply the nighttime version of your mind, shaped by melatonin's influence and preparing for the emotional repair that occurs in sleep. As melatonin completes its nightly cycle, your body readies itself for the next. Evening will come again, the light will dim, and the gentle rise of melatonin will guide you back into the soft, introspective space of night, continuing the rhythm that has shaped human life for thousands of years. As we come to the end of tonight's quiet journey, take a moment to notice how your body feels now compared to when we began. Maybe your breath has softened, maybe your thoughts feel slower, or your muscles feel heavier against the blankets. That's the natural unfolding of melatonin's influence, the slow settling of your internal world into the calm rhythm of night. We've wandered through the origins of melatonin, the way your brain creates it, the signals that guide it, and the countless systems it touches while you sleep. And all of it, every shift, every subtle change, is simply your body trying to care for you, trying to protect you, trying to help you release the day so that you can rest. There's nothing you need to force, nothing you need to fix. Your body already knows this rhythm. Even if your sleep has felt scattered lately, even if your nights have felt busy or uncertain, the rhythm is still there. It remembers. It wants to guide you back into a place where rest feels natural. So as you drift now, let the gentle biology of night wash over you. Let melatonin dim the edges of your thoughts. Let your breath settle into its own pace. Let the quietness of the moment hold you exactly as you are. You've given your mind something soft to land on. Your body can take it from here. Whether you're already drifting or simply resting in stillness, you're exactly where you need to be. Good night.